Good evening and welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back on a Monday night, 9:30, asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. It is officially Blue Monday, the most depressing Monday of the year so far, the third week in January. Everybody's skinned. And not only is it blue, we've got to talk about that game again at the weekend. What's going on with you, mate?
Hey, it could be worse. You could have had to watch it again.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, I chose not to do that because I think I'd rather be strapped to a chair in a Saw movie than have to watch that game again, mate. It'd be less painful, but we are going to pick through the bones of that complete joke of a performance at the weekend, as well as talk about loads of other stuff, as we always do, and what's going on. If this is the kind of thing you like, smash subscribe, help get us to the next milestone, which is 10K. We're already over 9.6. You wonderful people have got us way closer to 10K, way quicker than I thought you would do. So thank you so much for that. And we are live tonight as well. Jump in the comments. Everyone's welcome in here, as long as you aren't a prick or you will get the flick. I am not in the mood for it tonight. As many of you have seen me in the Toon review chat before, I'm in a very, very grumpy mood. I put it down to Blue Monday, so we're going to get stuck right into it, Mark, and I'm going to hand the reins over to you, I think, on this one. Didn't perform is the tag. My God, that is an understatement. How crap were Newcastle at the weekend, mate?
I thought we covered in the post match and the aftermath that very much that I don't want to take too much away from just how good Bournemouth were and how good they have been all season, but Newcastle just weren't at the races from pretty much minute one. Bournemouth set their stall out. They showed exactly what they were going to do. They were going to use their pace high. They were going to press high. They were going to make. Get in behind the fullbacks. They were going to make the defenders make mistakes, and it's exactly what happened. They put their plan into absolute perfection. I think for me, watching it again, I think the biggest disappointment is just, other than a 10-minute spell, sort of either side of the goal, I don't think there was any real part of the game that Newcastle really controlled, and for me that there was a lack of reaction from the players, particularly that things had to change and nothing did. And coming out from half time again, you thought right axe be read and maybe it's a change or two or something just to change the setup and change the mentality, try and combat what Bournemouth were doing, and it didn't happen. And it could have easily been more than 4. I mean, they get their 2 goals late in the game to make it 4, but there's the one off the post, there's the disallowed goal, there was all sorts going on.
Yeah, I think Paul's getting a bit wound up by your ticker there, by the sound of it. He says, "Can you please take that off the screen instead of my autistic syndrome into a meltdown?" So sorry about that, Paul. Sorry about that, mate. But yeah, I mean, I think possibly the only worst thing than Newcastle's performance of the weekend was the state of the commentary team on TNT Sport, who kept trying to refer to Patrick Kluivert like he was some kind of Newcastle legend, and that he wasn't a complete broke, washed up shit centre forward who was more interested in getting stuck into birds in a big market than he was getting stuck into centre halves when he was playing at St James's Park. He was fucking woeful at Newcastle United, was Paddy Kluivert. He was dog shit. He made Carl Court like Didier Drogba in a black and white shirt. That's how shit he was. So it amazes me that these pundits do absolutely fucking zero research when manure just flows out of their mouth. And they get paid for it as well, which is unbelievable. But yeah, honestly, Mark, the performance was weak as piss was the word I would say. One of the most depressing things for me, and I talked about this on the post match, and we've got a slide just to depress you even further with this one, was the state of the bench. Then when a game slips away from you like it did at the weekend, and Newcastle were nowhere near in this game whatsoever, we were outpressed, we were outplayed, we were out Newcastle, really, one of the better word, by Bournemouth. They wanted it more. We weren't interested. Our big players didn't show up. We tried to keep passing from the back, even though we were completely pressed out of it. Dan Burn just suddenly thought, oh, if I just keep doing it, it'll eventually happen. Anthony Gordon yelled him at one point. He still kept doing it. But the biggest issue is you can moan about squad rotation. You can moan about substitutions. But look at the clip of that bench. I'm just going to run through them like the usual suspects lineup, with Kaiser Soze in the fucking middle of them, right? Spoiler alert if you haven't watched that movie. So let's start at the top, right?
I think you're good. You're about 20 years out for that, so I think you're all right.
I'm probably safe. I think I'm probably safe on that one, to be fair. Yeah? Where the fucking keys, fucking cocksucker? That was the best line ever in that movie, by the way. Anyway, going back to this lineup of raggy dolls, right? So Fabian Schär and Kieran Trippier, great players in their day. Their day has passed. They are old. They are fucking old, right? Kieran Trippier spent more time with his hand up in the air. Big shout out to my mate Steve, who pointed this out. Kieran Trippier just seems to be waving at somebody in the crowd that he knows, because all he does is stand with his fucking hand up every single time he's on the park. He was too scared to cross the halfway line in case he got done for pace by Semenyo. Waste of a substitution. Fabian Schär was woeful when he come on. That pass across the box, honestly, I felt like marching him through the streets of Newcastle with a bell ringing shame behind his back for that pass. It was so bad. So you've got two players there who are over 30 on the way out. We should have contingency plans for both of them. We're supposed to with the shape of Tino, who was manure in the game as well. Joe Willock is regressing quicker than my fucking hairline, as I said in the post-match analogy. That kid is shit. He's supposed to carry the ball at the park. I don't know what he was doing. Woeful. Willis Hula, fair play, come on as a novelty substitution. Didn't really do anything. Old Vakadimos and players. The manager clearly doesn't want him at the club at all. He can't get a sniff at all. I think you got more chance of getting a game, Mark, than fucking Vakadimos. Lloyd Kelly is shit. I'm sorry, he's shit, right? We got him for free. And if anyone's willing to pay 11 million quid for him, I will drive him to Italy myself. And I've got a fucking electric car. I'll have to charge you about 19 fucking times on the way. I'll drive him for you. I won't even charge you. He's dog shit. Sean Longstaff's another player who's regressing like fuck. Mickey Almiron's getting sold. The only player of note on that bench was Louis Miley, and he didn't even bring him on. So how depressing is that, Mark, in terms of abilities to change from the bench and nothing in the squad, and apparently a transfer market will buy nobody more than that in a minute. What the fuck is going on there?
Yeah, I mean, what else do you say to that? I mean, I think that was going to be one of my points when you look to the bench to see what you can do, and the only attacking option off that bench outside of a young centre forward is Miggy, and that sort of tells you the state of the squad, and it's just you have to look at it from a fan's point of view and just be utterly frustrated when that. Having said that, though, you look at the other bench, and I'll give them their credit. You look at the other bench, and there's nobody on it of any note whatsoever. But
it was a Gryffindor house on their fucking bench. They were about 12 years old, weren't they?
It was, and this is part. I think this is part of the argument back the other way. Yes, there are blips in this game and things, but for me, the bench is very. It shows the lack of investment in the squad over a long period of time. It shows the lack of any investment in the youth side of things for a long period of time. And that goes from previous ownership to current. I still think there's massive work that they need to be doing in that area now. But when things do go wrong, and we've been really critical at times of Eddie when things have gone wrong and he's not tried to change things and try and alter the setup or the way that Newcastle approach things when things do go wrong. There's not an awful lot on there to have done it. I found it.
That's a bella from Chipper. Sorry, we should change the head. What is Gannin? Absolutely, it feels that way. Sorry, Mark. Go on,
definitely. I'm just playing around with the background. I've just taken note. I've taken the banner off the bottom, so just having to play around and just move the cameras around. So I have taken note of that comment before. So we'll take that off for now. But yeah, to the whole. You want to see a manager make some changes in style, in direction, in approach to the way things are going, and nothing really seemed to change. The Murphy going off, obviously he got a knock. Willett came on and did absolutely nothing once again.
Terrible, absolutely terrible.
The Trippier for Hall. I mean, Lewis Hall. I mean, look,
he did struggle though. That was Lewis Hall. Probably one of Lewis Hall's worst games, Mark. To be fair, he really struggled there.
And I get that, and I understand that. My frustration with that whole point of the thing, you've sat and watched Matt Targett on the bench for weeks, and where was he? Because again, when you look at that bench and you go, well, Fabian Schär's there, Lloyd Kelly's there. You've got two centre backs, a right back. you've sacrificed a fullback for another centre back. Are you really going to need both centre backs in one game? I don't think so. Lloyd Kelly can play left back. The obvious thing is that Eddie didn't trust him at that point to come in and play left back up against that Bournemouth side. But I think the key battles were won, lost is Bournemouth, that high sort of press, that high thing, and that's one of the things I kind of want to get to, and I'll come to it now, because I think, and actually BBC did a really good job of this, and I think on Match of the Day at the weekend, because I think when you look at what happened is they focused more on the defensive side of things and the bravery of that side. But for me, this was the start, right in the 5th minute. Tino making the mistake, just getting sucked out to follow Semenyo, and then not following him. And you can see Tino. There's a little blue line on there. If you can't zoom in, I'll learn how to use these tools a little bit better, because I found some new ones this week.
Still doing better than Carragher, mate. Don't worry about that.
You can see Tino focused on the ball, and he has absolutely no idea where Semenyo's gone at this point. He's far behind. But what really frustrates me is just above him, you can see Murphy, the right side of Kluivert. It's Justin Kluivert, not Patrick Kluivert, as again.
Sorry, no, hang on, Mark. The legend.
The legend that was Patrick Kluivert, yeah.
The superstar centre forward. How many goals did he score for Newcastle? Answers the postcard, everybody. What was it, about 11 or something like that? And he was lucky.
But you watch Murphy, and I think that the two things here, I mean, the centre-backs aren't helped out at all by the fact that both Murphy and Tino leave them completely exposed at this point. Kluivert runs sort of that round route, so he covers just above where Tino is there and makes that run into the box, and Murphy just drops him completely. And I've left the slide out in this, so again, apologies. I was supposed to be another one that just left him, but Semenyo was able to get back, to get forward into that left-hand channel, and then pull the ball back for Kluivert, who's got so much time and space to be able to then just finish. It's unbelievable, and to be that early in the game. But they set their stall out before that. There were a couple of moments before that when they burst past the fullbacks. But for me, it was, I mean, this is their press. They very much were going to press high. They were going to do really what Newcastle are renowned for at times. You know, they put men forward every time that they Newcastle got the ball. They would push, and and I think Carragher said this as well tonight. There was a very evident move to push them towards the left-hand side of the field, and they were really uncomfortable doing anything else. And the number of players in this shot, I mean, you've got 6 Bournemouth players pressing at this point, and they were quite happy to leave the players 4-on-4 at the back, because they knew they were confident they could cope. Again, this is the lead up to the goal. As Byrne turns back on himself, because he's already gone left and then turned back to go right, you can see just in the background there, you can see Bruno screaming for the ball. Now, Bruno's got a little bit of space at this point, but he sort of did the typical Bruno sort of turn where he gets caught on the ball, and all of a sudden there's just so much space there for the forwards to run into, and Kluivert again gets himself free behind Dan Byrne and is able to finish. And this was kind of my point in terms of Match of the Day focused on the defensive side and the four. And I thought what showed was that you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players of Bournemouth sitting in the back, but they were quite happy to leave 3 high, and 3 high against 2 or 3 Newcastle defenders, because you can see Lewis Hall in this shot, you can see Livramento in this shot, and they were quite happy to do this and turn the ball over quickly and break. And because they've got so much pace, Botman and Byrne at times didn't stand a chance against that. And even, you know, when Newcastle did have the extra defender, the pace and the freshness you felt that Bournemouth ran with, they were like Energizer bunnies all day. And even to the last, they were still pushing, they were still pressing, and it just went on and on and on. And the other part was just picked up as, and it's not so much we talked about the Eddie Howe gap earlier in the season, didn't we? But there was a little bit of that crept back in. but Bournemouth were positioning players in to get in and pressure that back line, so that, and this was 2 passes within 5 seconds of each other. You see the first one that's being played here, and then it recycles and goes again, and then the second one 5 seconds later is played. And look at the movement of Lewis Cook here, the number 4 on this side, and you can see him hanging to the side. Gordon doesn't have a clue at this point where he is. So when that ball's then played, Cook's free and he's away at that point. And it was those sorts of movements, those sorts of passes that happened. And again, second half, the Newcastle midfield gets caught high, and Bournemouth are able to play through it. Simple pass takes out 4 or 5 players, and it was, I think, frustrating to watch from a point of view where we haven't seen this for so long, and then everything seems to have crept back in all at once. The high midfield, the almost lackadaisical sort of attitude to things. It felt like there was a lack of effort at times, and that's that ball that just bypasses the entire midfield. And then the last as it comes, I mean, this comes from you talked about the Fabian Schär pass earlier on. The Anthony Gordon one later on was equally as bad.
Even worse, I think. Even worse, possibly. He's just so lazy.
Ball. And he has his head down when he plays it, and it's just awful. But what got me was, this is the point in which was it Tyler Adams that got the ball or intercepted the ball at that point? I think it was, yeah. So Tyler Adams starts the ball. So the ball's halfway between Tyler Adams and Clive at this point. And you can see Dan Burn, and this is, I managed to fix my little vision thing at this point. So Dan Burn can see what's going on, and he's got no real threat around him. You've got the player on the right-hand side who is covered by Tino. You've got Schär that's covering the other forward in there just at the end of the box. Tino's there as well. Dan Burn has to step out, and he doesn't. And Dan Burn makes it to there. He should be another couple of yards further forward. And he then, I think the cardinal sin at that point is he turns his back and doesn't have a clue where the ball's going. And I know he can take one in the face at that point, but you're 2-1 down. You're chasing the game. You need something to get back into it. He has to read that situation better and close that gap to block. So don't take anything away from the shot, because it is a brilliant, brilliant finish. But it just felt like the way the rest of the game had gone. It felt like the players they'd all just found a way to have such a poor game all in one go, and everything that sort of was going wrong just went wrong all at once. Whether it was the pass, and it was the tackling, and there's a moment in that second half. I think Lewis Hall gets gets back and covers the player. I think, is it Christie that he gets back in front, and then he gets he gets brushed off the ball, and he's there, he's won it, he's got it, and he gets brushed off the ball, and it was just everything seemed to go like that, and it was brilliant from Bournemouth, because I think they set up perfectly for it. And like I say, I don't want to take anything away from their performance, because I thought they were absolutely great and have shown exactly why they are where they are in the league. It was just an awful, awful off day, and they happen. Look, they do happen, but we'll come back to the point of there was such a lack of ability to change things off the bench, and to change that sort of that attitude. But that was, it stank most of the day, didn't it? The attitude, really, it just felt like, and I think a lot of people said this, I thought the only player that kind of really comes out of it with any credit was Tonali, because I thought he did as much as he possibly could defensively and trying to get the team going forward.
Well, do you know what, you say that, Mark, right? But I thought a bit more about it there, just while you were showing your slides, right? And I'll be brutally honest, I think both Joe Linton and Bruno were a fucking disgrace at the weekend, the pair of them, for numerous reasons. Bruno gets the goal, which is a good goal, but he completely overplayed on so many occasions where he was pressed. He was asking for the ball when he had 3 men on him. He was trying that stupid thing where he rolls over and gets a free kick, and the referee was having none of it from minute one. And he kept persevering and trying, thinking he was going to turn the referee, which he wasn't. Joe Linton looked like somebody who had 7 pints of Stella and wanted to fight. It was fucking disgraceful. And you've got this young, talented midfielder on the bench in the shape of Louis Miley. I've seen a few of the guys smashing the comment already saying, why wasn't Louis Miley on at half-time? Why wasn't Louis Miley on half-time? We couldn't keep the ball. You had 3 players on that bench. Yes, 2 of them are old, right? But they can keep the ball well in the shape of Trippier, Cher, and Louis Miley. He didn't bring any single one of them on. You know, he brought Cher on for Botman because I don't know what happened with Botman, whether he was protecting his injury or something like that. But if I was one of them 2 midfielders, right, and I saw this young kid in training day in, day out, passing past people at 18 years old, look like a fucking seasoned veteran, smashing in rakers against Bromley at St James's Park, I'd be shitting myself he was going to nick my space. The only reason I think these 2 think he's not going to nick their space is knowing fine well that this manager will not change things, regardless of what happens. And there is an element of that here. There's an element of that here that because Eddie Howe wants to stick to the same group of players every single week in, week out, win, lose or draw, because he wants that consistency. And I know we've won 9 spin and everyone's saying, oh, you got to allow for that. And I get what you're saying. But at the end of the day, if somebody's playing that fucking bad, right, I don't care if you're playing for fucking Ridgewell Rovers or Newcastle United, you're getting hooked at half-time because you're dog shit. But these lot went back out on the pitch the second half and they were crap. They were absolutely crap. Joe Linton was lucky he didn't get a red card for that stupid tackle on Clivert alone. You know, and for me, the pair of them were a disgrace. They really were. And if they've got no threat, no worry, no concern, someone's going to take the space, even this talented kid on the bench. I mean, we're going to get into transfers in a minute. If you didn't know already, everybody, my head has fell clean off with transfers with this football club. I am absolutely up to here and fucking beyond with that arrogant looking twat Mitchell, and he's getting it off me in a minute, by the way, believe you me. Anyone who loves a rant, sit down, pour yourself a whiskey and enjoy, because I'm going after this prick in about 10 minutes, right? But if these lot don't think anyone's going to take their place, doesn't matter how shit they play, Mark, they're going to play the next game. And they've got to put it right the next game because they're playing the worst team in the Premier League, arguably the worst team the Premier League has ever seen in Southampton. These fuckers couldn't beat an egg. That's how shit they are. They're awful. They're one of the worst. They make that Derby County side look like the fucking Galacticos. If we can't hand them their arse on their own ground, then this football club should just fold up and fuck off, because you couldn't ask for a better fixture to put it right in the next game. But if these lot piss around, if Bruno, see, if I was playing in midfield with Bruno, I'd have kicked him up the arse for over dribbling and overplaying. I'd have run over and physically kicked him up his arse and said, if you do that again, I'm going to fucking tackle you, because he must drive you mad playing alongside him, doing that. I mean, Tonali's cool as out. I mean, you know, aliens could have landed on the pitch and Tonali would just go meh and probably pass around him, you know, because he doesn't seem to care. But Bruno Guimaraes needs to sort his shit out, because he's not Gascoigne, he's not Maradona. He needs to stop trying to dribble around 5 or 6 players, because honestly, it's getting ridiculous now.
I think it's when you do those sorts of moves in high positions, it's not so bad, because look, when they come off, they're great, but if you give the ball away, it's no great shakes, because most of the time you've got plenty of players behind you. When he does those sorts of things, when he tries to role plays and he's so close to the edge of his box and there is nobody there as cover, it's him. It's just reading the situation for it. It does frustrate, and I think I've liked the way that watching them over recent weeks, you've seen him much higher up the field, so he's not been in a position to make those mistakes and make those mistakes in deep areas. Tonali's been the one that's covered that ground. But you're right. I mean, the much vaunted 3 of them have just, when you have 2 have such an off day, and then I can't help myself but come back to the fact that we talk about in-game management exactly, Lynn, and I'm just about to say it, is when you come to that and you have such an off day for 2 of your 3 midfielders on the day, and then you bring on, I sort of understand Willock on for Murphy because he's the more attacking of them, but when those 2 have had such an off day, why is Miley not coming on to try and just give a little bit more control? And why is nobody picking up on the fact that what Bournemouth are trying to do is play that sort of that higher route and push higher? So why is Tonali not dropping slightly deep, or being made to drop into that hole a little bit more to come and shore up that gap that was there? There are, and like I said before, we've questioned those in-game changes, those in-game that in-game management from the manager. And look, when things are great, things are brilliant, when things like this happen, you start to sort of not question it. I'm not questioning his position at the club at all, but you start to see why then we asked those questions before about, go back to the Everton game from last season. You go back to when things went wrong against West Ham or against even, and I'll say it again, when come back to that PSG game from last year when Alexander Isak couldn't walk, and the reluctance to make that change and to disrupt the flow. Sometimes you have to make a change. Sometimes you have to change things and give the opposition something different. This is what I've talked about with Miggy using his right foot, for fuck's sake. Give the opposition a different look from now and again.
That ship's long since sailed, Matt.
Well, it has
more chance of DiCaprio getting on that fucking wardrobe door in Titanic than Miggy uses right foot, mate.
But you get the point, don't you? You look at those things and you go, well, you have to do something differently in order to give the opposition something to think of. Because if you're playing like they did at the weekend and you come out of the second half and do exactly the same thing, the opposition are going to sit there and go, "Yep, this is fine. We can cope with this because you're not doing anything different to what you did before, and we've proved we can cope with it."
Well, I think for me, I mean, again, yes, Bournemouth absolutely deserve all the credit in the world, and I think Iriola's done a great job with them this season. And, they're up there for a reason. But I think they disappoint. I honestly do think, people say they didn't think fatigue played a part. I think they did a little bit, because if you don't rotate the squad enough, we said this last season, you are going to get tired legs. But I think complacency definitely played a part. I think a lot of the lads thought, chasing this record, that's in James Park, full crowd, Bournemouth, we'll do this, we'll sort this. We're in Newcastle United, we're on a roll, we're going to win this game. And from minute one, they just weren't at it whatsoever, and they got completely overplayed. But that's the bit that concerns me, because you're looking at the team, and like you say, Mark, there's 6, 7, 8 of them having off days. You have to make a change then. As a manager, you have to go, something isn't right. We couldn't keep the ball, consistently giving it back to them. A ball playing midfielder like Louis Mile on the bench, who's so good with the ball. Him and Bruno, those little interconnecting passes, him and Tonali. You could have had them two in a double pivot, took a bit of pressure off, let Bruno push up a little bit more. That could have worked. You could have even shoved Joe Linton further up the park and hooked Murphy because he was fucking useless. You could have made those positive changes at half time. One change, so Murphy off, Louis Miley on, and make that change. And I honestly do think we would have looked more settled and calmer on the ball. And yes, I'm not Eddie Howe, and you're not Eddie Howe, and we're not Premier League football managers, but that surely was a simple decision to make, And the other bit that annoys me, we're going to get into this in the transfer segment, but you look at that bench and there's no spark there. There's no real pace. There's no real penetrative players that can get into the final third and do something creative, make something happen. There's 2 big names missing from there, as I said in the post-match on the aftermath, in the shape of Harvey Barnes and Callum Wilson as well. And you can't rely on them through fitness and consistency. You can't rely on them, right? At the minute, they're looking like bad squad members because neither one of them can stay fit or stay consistent enough, right? Both brilliant players on their day, but how many fucking days did they have? Not enough, right? And that's a major problem. If both of those players were on the bench, they'd have been on a half-time. As Ian says there, game changer is the word, Chris, mate. Players like dare say, like a Maxi, somebody with that X factor, somebody with a little bit of difference, somebody that can just come on, run at somebody, drop a shoulder, go around them, get a penalty, bang, you're back into the game 2-2. Right, let's fucking go for it. There's no players in the squad that do that. And to see, as Peter says there, 3 windows with no signing. Nobody else in this squad. Like, how much more are you going to get out? I mean, we might as well, because we're kind of moving into the squad depth section here as well, Mark. How much more are you going to squeeze out of Joe Willock? How much more are you going to squeeze out of Sean Longstaff? How much more are you going to squeeze out of Miggy Almiron, who looks like he's off anyway? Right? We have kept these players way too long. And people are talking about, we've got to balance the squad, financial fair play. Honestly, the amount of fucking trainee financial advisors on social media, I'm about to ask them for fucking investment advice because they seem to know everything about finance. These motherfuckers, honestly, it drives me mad. I've come off social media because I'm going to lose me fucking marbles with these people. They're absolute clowns. A lot of them absolute fucking clowns. They've got intravenous drips of Kool-Aid dripping into their veins, swallowing this bullshit, right? Them players that we've had for so long now, we should have sold them when they had a higher market value. Callum Wilson's been a fucking A&E patient for the past 3 years. Nothing's different from Callum Wilson. We know the crack. When he's fit, he scores, but he's hardly ever fit, right? All that's happened over the last few years is he's got less and less in terms of recouping, in terms of sales. His asset value's dropped, and his availability has dropped as well. So that's all that's happened with Callum Wilson. That's a dreadful decision by the manager, by the board, whoever made that decision, right? Joe Willock, again, is going down the Callum Wilson route, always injured, right? And now he's coming on and he's not effective at all. He's not a game changer. He doesn't run the ball up the pitch and get you 10 yards up the pitch. I mean, what did he do? I don't know if it was against Bournemouth or if it was against Wolves. He come on the pitch and he just did this weird little spin thing and the ball was nowhere near him. And I was like, what?
Wolves.
I thought he was auditioning for Strictly or something like that. I thought, what the fuck are you doing, Joe Willock? It was abysmal, right? The Joe Willock that we knew and loved has long since died. That kid, I don't know who the fuck he is. He's a shell of a player that he used to be. But my point is, people are talking about PSR and bringing in money and all that. And listen, this might not even be Mitchell's fault, right? Or even Darren Eales' fault. This might be Amanda Staveley's fault. This could be Murdad's fault. This could be Eddie Howe's fault, which I think it is, right? I'll caveat it. Eddie Howe proved a lot of us wrong when we questioned his ability. He's turned it around. However, Eddie Howe is way too loyal to these players that he's kept to the point where they are now not good enough to impact games, and you can't get any money for them because nobody wants to buy them or not buy them for the value you want to sell them at. So then we end up selling, a couple of guys already mentioned this, we end up selling young, exciting players like Elliot Anderson and Yakubu Minter, both scored, by the way, at the weekend, funnily enough. One of them is playing for third place in the league and playing very well in a number 8 position, right? And we've got Shaw Longstaff sitting on the bench. Still. I've even seen people talking about selling Louis Miley to cash in for PSR. I can't get my head around it, Mark. I can't understand how these people are swallowing this bullshit and thinking that this is the way to behave as a football club. Selling better players and keeping worse players who regress further is not a way to move forward as a football club. I don't give a fuck if your manager's Eddie Howe or fucking Santa Claus. That's not the way to move forward as a football club. I'm sorry, it's not. And no one's going to convince me otherwise.
Well, no, selling your best players to replace them with crap is never the way to go. Look, we all know there are constraints that are put on the club by other entities, we'll call them, the Premier League.
I'm even sick of that excuse, Mark. Sorry, mate. Other clubs can spend and do things who have got less revenue than Newcastle, and we can't do it.
The difference with those clubs is they've had years of building to this.
West Ham.
I'll use the
Villa.
Jack Grealish sold for 100 million, which was reinvested. Declan Rice was sold for 120 million.
So why didn't we sell one of our players then? Why didn't we sell Bruno? Why did we keep Bruno and give him the captain's armband?
And I think
sold him for 80 million.
I think the attempt was to try and do that.
But nobody wanted to pay it.
By putting that release clause in, they potentially scared off some. But the difference with the Bruno sale was you weren't getting the full amount of that. If you look at the Grealish sale, he's homegrown, didn't cost them a penny to buy, cost nothing in that regard.
I suppose it's raw profit.
Declan Rice was exactly the same, so it's pure profit. Bruno would have still had, even if he'd been sold last summer, he would have still had a number of years left on what was left over in his amortization. So that it wouldn't be, even if you sold for 100 million, you're probably looking at about 60, 70, probably about 80 million's worth of profit. So that turns a corner. And this comes back to kind of where I wanted to go. Is there a point now in which Newcastle have to sit back and go, for the greater good, they have to sell one of those big players? Because there's a real lack of talent available to sell. You have Longstaff.
Now, yeah. Not then. Not when you got the Champions League and you could have sold Champions League players.
Yeah, but
for higher value and bought better players in.
But I get when you've had that run, you've had those players that have taken you into the Champions League, the likes of Bruno. That's the player ideally.
I'm not talking about Bruno Mark. I'm talking about
No,
Murphy, Mickey, Wilson,
those.
I'm talking about those players. This is the problem. You didn't sell those players when you should have sold them. It's like a house, right? If someone said to you, if your house was a fucking shit tip and someone said, I'll tell you what, if you sell that tomorrow, you'll get 400 grand for it, you'd fucking sell it. You wouldn't wait for it to drop to 200 grand a year later. That's what Eddie Howe's done with these players. That's what the club's done with these players. It's mismanagement of the squad completely. If you're supposed to trade, fucking trade. Don't just stay where you are and keep a player. And I don't know if it's Howe's arrogance or if it's the board's naivety, but, you know, Jacob Murphy's had 5 or 6 good games, right? And everyone's talking to him like he's a Ballon d'Or winner, right? You know, the weekend, did he revert back to type? Because the guy's been shit the majority of the time he's been here. He's had moments, you know, but people, not the guys in the comments, right? I love you all. Some of the fan base drive me up the fucking wall. Some of the arguments for keeping these players, but he's a canny lad, or he's a character, he's great. Like the Matt Ritchie one was the best one. The fucker didn't play for God knows how long, apart from playing table football at training, and people are talking about like he should have a statue. You know, some kid on Twitter said the other day to me, or X said, when I said about Kevin Keegan, wore flags during the day, and I said, we owe this guy everything. And, you know, tell me you're 12 without telling me you're 12. He went, what do we owe him like? And I was thinking, oh my fucking God. Like, I couldn't even be bothered to reply to the little pissant and say, I tell you what, mate, go read a book on Newcastle United, you little fucking pubeless knob. Like, who the fuck doesn't know Kevin Keegan is at this football club? Are we really in a world now where guys who kick corner flags get more credit than fucking guys who save football clubs? I mean, honestly, am I an old fart now? You know, fuck me. Like, don't answer that because I am. But like, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
This fan base is driving me crazy. We're not moving forward as a football club. If you want to keep a hold of a guy because he's funny on one of the club's social media videos, you know, and he's dog shit on the pitch, we're not going to move forward as a football club like that. We're not, you know, We're just going to stay still or regress. And it's just nuts, man.
I think you're absolutely right. You have to sell, or you have to look to sell some of these players when they're at their peak, or when they seem to be at their peak.
And we haven't. It's gone. It's past.
The likes of, and I guess to play that, it's always easier in hindsight. But the club knew what they were spending. The club knew what they had available to them right the way through this process. They're not blind to it. They know exactly how much they spent in each window. They know what they've spent on Bruno and Botman and Isak and the like. So they know what's coming. They know where they have to trim. They know where they have to make some money. They know that tough decisions are going to come along the way. But you've now got into a position where this season, Callum Wilson's out of contract, which means that there's going to be no money made on Wilson. Lascelles is going to come to the end of his contract, so again, nothing on him. Dubravka's going to go for nothing if he goes in the summer. If they're going to keep him until that, you know, I guess the ideal thing would have been to have sold him now for whatever you can get, and then it's a little bit of money in the coffers. But that's not going to happen. So,
the keepers are shambolic that they brought in though. So they're in a position now where they can't sell Dubravka because they've got a Greek kid that nobody wanted. You know, the last time I saw somebody ditch a Greek guy this quick was Shirley Valentine in the fucking movie, I think, mate. When she was on holiday. And then you've got John Ruddy. John Ruddy's older than you, Mark. What the fuck's that about? He's probably got worse knees than you as well, probably, and that's saying something. Your knees have got more hits than take that. But this is my point. How bad, and it's a free pass, man. It's a free pass. Eddie Howe's got a free pass. Mitchell's got a free pass. I'm going to talk about him in a minute. The board's got a free pass. You know, everyone thought, well, we've got the stack. Can the stack play right wing? Can it? Like, what the fuck? Like, what on earth?
And that's not going to solve PSR.
Nobody's challenging this woeful management of the squad, man. Like, yeah, we're winning a nice win and run, and we're sitting in the top 4 and all that. That's great, right? And Champions League's on the horizon, and we've got a Carabao Cup final on the horizon, right? But that's the reason to invest in the squad. You know, buy 2 or 3 players in to get the Champions League positions. Because I tell you right now, if we don't get Champions League, Mark, Isak's fucking gone, Bruno's fucking gone, Tonali's probably gone, Gordon's probably gone, Botman's probably gone, and then who you left with?
Well, this is part of the problem, and I think European football probably saves an awful lot of that. But I go back to what I was saying. When you look at the contracts end this season, I said, and this is where the mismanagement of the squad overall, because you have to look to move this on. Look, the likes of Brighton bring in players for next to nothing and sell them on for God knows. And I know Newcastle have done that with Minday, which in essence is a great bit of business to get him in for next to nothing and to sell them on for what they have. I'm just like, you don't want to do it because of the player that he could become. But actually, in terms of business, it's a really good deal.
As long as you invest it right in the football.
Well, this is what
if we bought a right winger with that money, then great. But we haven't. We haven't bought a right winger with that money.
And when you come back to then the players that are coming out of contract this season, and you've got a list of Wilson, Shared, Lascelles, Jamal Lewis, who's never in the squad, but another player from a bygone era that's not there. Kraft will be out of contract. Dubravka, Gillespie, and Ruddy we could ignore because
they'll get new deals, mate. Gillespie will get new deals because he's a canny lad and he sings Run King on karaoke. He'll get another fucking deal.
But then you've got 1 year left. Sean Longstaff's got that extra year. Miggy, I think will go this window, which is one. Pope's out of contract next season. So is Trippier. So is Target. So is Byrne. Now, there's two straight away on there that I would look to move on for that very reason. You're looking to move on Matt Target now he's fit, and you're looking to probably move on Sean Longstaff because anything you make on Sean Longstaff is going to be profit. You're not going to get 30 million for him anymore, I don't think. You
might get 15. Might get 15
20.
Million. Yeah.
If you get a side that's come up or a side in the likes of Everton or somebody that wants that grafter, that wants that hard work in midfield, especially under Moyes, you might get something like that. But it's so limited in terms of what is available to spend. And this goes back to the last sort of period of time. How many players of a prospect of Newcastle brought in over the last 3 years or so? Garang Qual doesn't look like he's going to achieve anything. He seems to have vanished off the face of the planet. Harrison, the kid from City, seems to have disappeared off into the youth side. I think that there's enormous promise there. And he might be one that Newcastle can cash in on at some point. Not that they probably want to, but they might have to. And Minte was the other one. And it seems to be that there's been a real lack of focus on that side of things. And I said this a couple of seasons, Newcastle have to focus on both areas. They have to focus on the first team squad and what comes next. Because if you don't focus on what comes next, you end up in the problem that they're in now. Because there is no money to kind of throw around. Because there isn't that player.
But even that though, right? They've loaned out two players that they brought through the academy in the shape of Alex Murphy, who's been around the first team for the past 2.5 seasons, never got a sniff. Even when people were injured, never got a sniff. Playing full back to centre half, never got a sniff. You know, you got the young midfielder, is it Hernandez or whatever? He's out on loan. You know, Sanusi's not getting a sniff either. You know, I mean, and Eddie Howe's not the kind of manager, right, to sell Miggy and promote Sanusi to the first team. He won't do that because he doesn't want to use the youth for some reason. I don't know why. The Louis Miley thing was probably forced on him, right? And then look what happened. He was absolutely brilliant. And then what happens? You know, you can't get a game ahead of Sean Longstaff. And you think, what on earth is going on here? You know, I did see a comment there, by the way, from Dr. Sanjay, which I'm not going to pull up. I don't know where you got your doctorate from, mate, but it's more than people on social media with the canny lad comments. Maybe you need to go out and speak to Newcastle fans and then listen to that. I've heard people tell me Sean Longstaff should play ahead of Louis Miley. And honestly, I nearly pet the fucking Labrador. I thought they were blind as a bat. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. I really, really couldn't. You know, and yeah. I mean, sorry, Mark. Hang on. He's back again. I'm not saying he should be close to starting Dr. Sanjay. I don't know who the fuck you are, mate. You're very close to getting the flick off me. I'm not in the mood for your bollocks tonight, right? Listen here. This kid is the only right winger we've got outside of fucking Jacob Murphy if we sell Miggy Almiron. That's my point, you know? So that's my point. What the fuck? What? You're soft, shy, scared of an actual debate. I have a debate every single show I'm in. You fucking melt. You know, you don't even know what you're talking about, mate. That's the last comment I'm going to put up with this knob, right? Hang on, Mark. Hang on a minute. My point is, you've got these young players coming in. You won't put them in the squad, right? We've got no players. We've got no players in the squad to play in certain positions. So we shoehorn someone like Joe Willock out wide who can't play out wide. So, I don't understand it. 2 seconds, mate. I'm just going to get rid of this fucking arsehole here in the comments because I've fucking had enough of that prick. So, sorry, Mark, what were you saying?
No, I was going to say, on Sanusi, I get it. No, he's nowhere near starter. But again, when something at the weekend, when your only attacking option is Almiron, and you've seen that there is some life in him, and there is some excitement that he can change things, and he's not the finished article, nowhere near. But for that, when you have such limited options, why is he not in the squad? Why is he not available to you to be able to come on? And when Murphy comes off injured, you go, do you know what? We need something different. We need a different look of how things are going. And then he's surely available at that point. And that's the other frustrating side of things. And it comes back again to that management side of things. And yes, it's been the last 9 games for Newcastle have been absolutely excellent. And not taking away that there were creaks in midweek. There were creaks in the Wolves game where there were just signs that, you know, they're a poor side, Wolves, at the moment, and they weren't able to exploit it. But Bournemouth came in fully with an idea of what to do, and yeah, just I want to see things that have, you know, a manager that will have the ability to change things and just do things a little bit differently when things do go wrong. And having a player like Sanusi, and I said to you last week, I said there's an element of Maxi about him where he's got that little bit of explosiveness, that little bit of nobody else knows what the fuck he's going to do, so he could just do something absolutely magical. Allow him to have the stage to do that now and again. And in a game where things haven't gone right for you, give him the opportunity to go out and just do something magic. That's what these players, that type of player thrive on.
He's not built like that. He's not built like that as a manager. He's too cautious, right? He's too cautious. He doesn't want to play a player like that. That's why Maxi's gone. Doesn't want to play a player like that. And listen, Maxi frustrated the life out of me, but Howe is a steady Eddie, right? Doesn't want to play like that. He wants to play in his little formation and do his running and all that. Doesn't want a Ben Arthur. Doesn't want a Jack Grealish. Doesn't want a Gaza, right? Doesn't want anything like that at all. Okay, that's not what he wants. And that's fine, right? But then when games go like they did the weekend and you need someone just to do something out of nothing, we haven't got a player to do it. You know, just to do something to get everybody up and jumping and bouncing. Like, I remember being at St James's Park when Ben Arthur scored that goal against Blackburn. I mean, I must admit, I did shout, "Pass it, you greedy bastard," about 4 times after he put it back of the net.
I remember.
but exactly. But we don't have players like that anymore, right? And listen, those players are a cause of frustration, no doubt. But they can also turn games on the head for you. In the Champions League, if we'd had a player like that, we might have turned some of those games around, right? But Eddie Howe doesn't want those players. And that's a caveat that you take with that manager. I'm going to move on to the next section, Mark, because I was losing me rag there. But that's the twat in the comments. Right. It probably was that fucking Melt Sanjay from social media, I imagine. But I told you, listen, you know, everyone knows in the comments, right, that, you know, we love a debate in the Evermore chat, right? That's absolutely fine. If you're going to come on and try and swing your dick around in the comments and talk bollocks, especially when I'm not in the mood for it, you're going to get the flick. Simple as that, right? But talking about the transfers, right? I'm open. I will agree with Dr. Sands on this one. My head has come right off with regards to this transfer situation. I am absolutely sick of this. Mark's gone deaf, I think. I'm absolutely sick of this whole situation. As you say, Dazzler, sick of PSR. I'm sick of PSR. I'm sick of FFP. I'm sick of Newcastle United's continued silence when it comes to this transfer window and the ones before, right? And I know on the TTR, I think Paul's in the comments there, Alex was saying that, you know, Mitchell doesn't owe us anything, right? And he's right, okay? He's right, okay? But you got to sense the room. You got to sense the atmosphere. People are wondering what the hell is going on. Why are we not signing anybody? Why are we not bidding for anybody? Why are we not moving anybody on? And the longer the club stays silent, not even a whiff of a comment, just a comment, doesn't have to be a huge, big interview, you know, with somebody with a microphone in front of your face. Just a little comment about, listen, you know, we know what we need to do. Mark's disappeared for a minute. We know what we need to do. The squad needs improving. We're looking at it. We're doing the best. We're assessing the market, all that kind of stuff. But it's all this absolute bullshit that you see, nonsense, no talking whatsoever, that just annoys the shit out of you. And you look at that bench at the weekend and you can see that we haven't got enough depth in the squad. You know, the squad's as deep as a puddle of piss, you know, and I don't understand how the club can't just sit there and not talk about this and not turn around and tell the supporters what they're trying to do in the background when it comes to improving the squad. And I'm telling you now, if Mickey Almiron goes, and disappears out of this squad picture, right? I totally understand why he goes, right? Because he's no longer really impacting games. He's no longer doing anything in the games really that makes him Miggy, I suppose, pulling something out of nothing. As I said before, Miggy was capable of doing that, certainly in that purple patch season, where we got in the top 4, but he hasn't done that for a really, really long time. And I can understand moving him on, but if he's not got the balls to promote somebody like Sanusi to the first team squad and give him the chance to become a good player, then he has to go out and buy another player. He has to go out and buy something. Harvey Barnes is knackered for another month as well. And for me, I don't understand. As you say, Kath, stonewalling us. There really are stonewalling us. Our Mark's back. The stonewalling us. I did draw for one breath, Mark, when you were gone. Don't worry. I'm just saying that the lack of communication from the club, and as Lynn says, they're hiding behind PSR to avoid back and Howe. I mean, I actually think, in all fairness, that Eddie Howe is pulling these lot out of the shit because he's able to get a tune out of players that maybe aren't top 6 material, right? He's actually pulling them out of the shit and allowing them to wriggle free of not buying anybody. And I don't understand how they feel they can sit there and say nothing. If this window ends and they don't sign a player, Mark, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on the most epic rant you've ever heard in your life on this channel. There won't be enough Fs for you to count on my rant if we don't sign somebody this window, because we're in a hair's width of a top 4 or 5 position in the Premier League and the Cup, right? And these lot aren't interested in adding to this squad. I'm sorry, I can't understand that, mate.
No, I've missed an awful lot. I can the cat is out and I can hear an almighty barney going on outside, so that's why I dacked off.
If only Ian Toon Trader was still here to hear you.
Honestly, that bloody cat is going to be the freaking death of us. Look, like I say, I missed an awful lot of what you said there, so apologies. But I think I get the gist. Is the way that this comes in, it will be a huge blow to have a third window where nothing much happens, and the club surely have to look at the state of the squad and know that things have to change, and the seeming lack of any movement, and from Mitchell's side of things as well, and I've kind of been on his side of and say, well, certainly during the sort of summer where he's come in kind of late on. And not being able to influence what's gone on because of the shit show that's gone on before with Dan Cashworth. That has its own problem. But then surely as that kind of professional in that role, you bring with you a wealth of information and a wealth of targets and things that you can then mould around what your new manager has got. Where's that?
I think he's a fraud, Mark. I think he's a fraud, mate.
Where's but that's not sort of backed up by what he's done in the past, and I can kind of get that, and the lack of any sort of conversation around this from the club. Do you know what? He'd probably be quite good, Stephen. To be fair, he is quick.
He's quick. He is nippy. He is nippy.
He does like track back as well. So you probably find him on the top of, you'll find him in level 7 half the time because he'll just climb.
Puts his hand up like Kieran Trippier quite often as well, just to stop things happening.
Likes to jump on people's backs, so you might see a few yellows that go with him too. But look, it's a difficult one. The first of the 3 windows he's nothing to do with. Last window I think is difficult. This time, where's the planning? Look, it might be in the background, but we're now 20 days into the month and the likes of Almiron are still here. They're still at the club. So why are these deals not done or have been planned to be done much earlier? These are the kinds of, if the whole purpose of the window is to have to sell 1 or 2 to be able to bring somebody in, and I understand that the shit rules that the club have to play with. But if that is the case, then those deals should be pre-planned. Those deals should be, the conversation should be having been done earlier.
That's a good question. Just a couple of comments there from Clouds. I want your honest opinion, lads. Are the owners not interested anymore? Let me take this first. I think by design, Clouds, the Premier League's plan was always stifle the PIF to make sure they couldn't spend the levels of wealth that they thought they were going to spend, to keep the top six happy, and then keep making it more and more frustrating every single window that passes for them, to the point where they'll lose interest and they'll go and invest in their other investments, like the boxing, like the golf, like the other stuff, and I actually think it's working. I think it's working. And honest to God, Mark, if this shit doesn't change soon, I honestly think I can see these lots selling up and fucking off, because they'll go and buy a team in Serie A or La Liga or something like that, and they'll transform that into the superpower that wins the Champions League, because they'll think there's too many restrictions in the UK. We'll sell it on, sell it to the Rubens, whatever, fuck off, and go and buy something else. Because for them, it's chump change. 300 million quid was chump change. They'll go and buy something else. And I think that's exactly what the Premier League want them to do.
Yeah. I don't think the Premier League, like we all talk about the cartel and the big greedy six, and whatever name you want to throw at them, but there isn't an inherent belief, I think, amongst the other 14 clubs that the protection is there more to protect them than it is to help protect those that want to get there or spend beyond their means. We'll go back to the things that the likes of Kevin Maguire have said. What other business do you stifle?
Kevin Maguire's born in Britain.
Oh, I did exactly what you did. And what other business do you stop them being able to spend money to improve their facilities and to improve what they've got? A new gym that opens, do they suddenly get stopped because JD Sports don't want them to bring in new equipment to take them? No, you don't do that in any other form of business. But I get the need to protect clubs from stupidity. But when a club like Newcastle, a club like, and I guess, the likes of Villa and Forest, who've got who want to spend and who want to get into that position. Brighton have kind of one that have said that they sort of want to do it the way that they're happy with the way things are going. But there are others that have got big owners that are coming up. You only have to look at the investment that is further down the leagues, and the likes of Birmingham and your favourite club Wrexham, that will want to spend to take those next levels. They're not going to be able to do that because they don't have the revenue behind them to be able to do that straight away. So they're going to have to find to do things another way, and this then leads into one of the points I wanted to say about the sort of the transfer windows. If Newcastle aren't going to sell one of their big players, and they're not going to take that that big lump of cash to then be able to reinvest, then they have to start doing things in a more Moneyball sense. They have to start looking at those players to come in and fill the squad with more. Do a Brighton. Do a Fulham, those sorts of where they bring those players in. I mean, look at the likes of Pellegrini that went to Fulham. Those are the standard of player that then you have to start to try and find elsewhere. The number of players that have gone through that Brighton side that have then moved on for big money, and they're brilliant at it. And I think the thought was,
I would sign them. I would sign them. Sign Brighton's scouting team. Sign Chelsea's lawyers. They're the best two signings.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that might be a next one, but I think that was part of the Ashworth thing. I think the reason why the club was so excited about bringing Dan Ashworth in was really part of that Brighton setup that was bringing in those players. Well, it never came to fruition.
So I don't think he was the brains of the scouting. I think they were still there.
I think at this moment in time, the club have to pick a lane, and it might be that they have to go through 5 years of a sort of a Moneyball way of doing it until they've got the revenue coming in. But if they can build around the squad that they've got with that level of player to come in and fill in and things like that, because that level of squad just isn't there at the moment. But if they can do that over the next few years, then there's the real potential that those players will stay, because you start to continually get that European football, and the project is still a good project, and the owners will stay, will keep their interest in it. But if they are completely pushed out, if they are completely stopped from being able to invest, and the the likes of Chelsea can go and sell their women's team and their hotels to their parent company and things like that. The other one that got me as well was the Chelsea are in the process of buying one of the Blue Coat company players as well.
Yet the Premier League pulled a meeting.
Oh, that one's fine.
Sold Maxi to Saudi.
That one's fine.
Ridiculous. Steve was making a good point there. He's saying we're ahead of schedule, just entered phase 2 of the project. It's a 5-year plan for me. We're top 4, only 3 years in. So he's not worried about that. That's an okay view to have, Steve. See, Dr. Sanchez would do a debate on here, you fucking knob cheese. So I think that's a fair comment. That's a fair comment, Stephen. But for me, and again, my patience is waver thin today, right? So for me, I've had enough of this transfer. I've had enough of these empty promises, right? We're not political, I'm not getting political, right? But this is starting to sound like politics. Our owners are starting to sound like politicians. It's all empty promises and bullshit, and there's no factual result behind what they're trying to say to you. And I'm not having it anymore. I've had enough of it. All this bullshit that they come out and say, we famously do our rumor hazard videos, and it killed Mark before when I sent him a message and said, that's it, I'm fucking done. I'm not doing any more rumor hazard videos until this window is finished or until we sign a player, because I don't believe these lot are going to sign a player this window. A few weeks back, I was confident we were going to get a right winger. I thought surely they're going to get a right winger. I was watching Paul and Alex before in TTR, and they were still confident we're going to buy somebody. I've lost all confidence we're going to buy anybody this window, right? And I think that's a major, major mistake by the football club, because I think Jacob Murphy's, whenever that wish he made on Zoltar runs out, being a good footballer, he's going to revert back to a shit player. There's an 80s reference for you. Whenever that happens, he's going to revert back to a shit player. There'll be no Miggy Almiron to copy and paste in there. You'll end up sticking Joe Riddick outside, who'll do his little Strictly Come Dancing spin and get 7 from the fucking judges, and that won't work either. And then he'll go down, pull his hamstring, and be out for another 9 months. You can't sell him either. So we're going to end up in a real bad position, and then the manager's not going to want to bring someone like Sanisu up into the first team because he doesn't think he's Eddie ready yet. So then you're going to end up with no right wingers, and you'll shoehorn Joe Linton out there or something like that, or shove Anthony Gordon out there, or shove Harvey Barnes out there, and then everyone will say Barnes is shit because he's playing out of position and he can't tuck inside and shoot like he normally does. So that's a real problem for me. That position, Mark, has been a problem for the last 3 years, and it's not been addressed. But sorry, how old are you, Paul? Who's Zoltar? Come on, mate. Big Tom Hanks, mate. Come on, make it a wish. You must be young, Paul. You must be young. You had an older name, Paul. You had an older name. My point is, yeah, exactly. My point is, centre forward, right? With no Wilson's made of trace and paper mache. We've known that for the last 3 years. Nothing's been done about it. The right wing position has been a major problem for the last 3 years. Done nothing about it, And why are more questions not being asked about those two positions? The fans just seem to happily go along with this. Oh, well, we can't buy anybody. It's PSR, it's FFP, can't do anything about it. But then none of the journalists, and I've got a problem with this. Christ almighty, me and you were going to talk, and soon I hope the journalists on here, they might gang up on me, by the way. I might have to go get some security for this night out. The amount of journalists I have a go at. Thankfully, Craig Hope will be there, and I'm Leicester Craig, so he might look after me. But none of the journalists ever ask questions, right? About why, if you're not going to sign a player ready, what youth team players are ready? Who do you think's got a chance? They never ask him any questions about that. They're just scared. They're just scared to ask him a difficult question. And I don't understand why. I really, really don't. And it just drives me nuts, man. It really does. And don't get me wrong, I like the manager. I do like the manager. I think he's articulate, intelligent, charming. But mate, you've got to ask the difficult questions as a journalist. That's what you're paid to do, man.
Yeah, I do feel there's an element of not fear with them, just the being left out in the cold if they do start to challenge the way that things are going, or to challenge the way that the club's being run, or so. But that comes with the territory. You have to ask the difficult questions. You for God's sake, bye.
What are you doing?
I'm just Mr. Doctor's back in the house and he's gone again. I can't be arsed. Look, if you're going to be that sad,
was he giving us more grief? Was he? What was he trying to do?
Going to be sad to create another profile just to comment and give a shit. You just fuck off. Honest to God, man. I mean, is your life that full of meaning that you have to do that? Honestly,
mate. I'm past it. I'm past it now. I'm past it now. Mate. I'm not bothered anymore. You could go watch somebody else, mate. Go watch John Sinclair or something, mate. You'll enjoy him better. Or go watch Paul Grant play guitar.
might be your cup of tea.
United. The shit.
United.
He can't catch a cross. He's terrible.
Honestly.
More on him in a second, mate. Sorry. I told you we'd be quick tonight, and I've just ranted too long about this. So we've got
to exactly.
Week, mate.
I know.
That's my fault. It's my fault.
No, that's all right. I've completely lost my train of thought now. Thanks for that, Doc.
This is the problem. When I'm in a bad mood, you lose your train of thought because I just go off in one, don't I, mate? Yeah, but anyway, just pulling it back into the whole transfer situation, right? Is 3 windows this will be with nothing.
Yeah.
And the club to me, however people feel about it, right? If you feel good about it, you feel relaxed about it, that's absolutely cool, right? I think they owe the fans an explanation as to why they haven't done anything. Especially with how obvious the Mark Wahey thing was in the summer as well. I think they owe the fans an explanation as to why we can't bring players in. And listen, it might not be nice to hear. They might say, listen, we can't buy players because of the situation that we're in. It's not great, but it is a situation that we're in. We're doing the best that we can, but we're trying to bring in young academy players, as you said, Mark, and coach them and bring them through. Talk to us as a fan base. Just, let us know what's going on, because the more you don't say anything, and the lad said it on Toon Review, you feel that unrest growing and growing and growing. And then when it's Blue Monday, someone like me who's in a bad mood goes off on one and says he's not talking about transfers anymore. But I'm not alone, mate. I'm not alone. No. A lot of people will be pissed off about this whole thing. And it needs to be sorted.
No, I think communication is one. The one thing that has happened since Amanda and Merdad have gone is that link, that little bit of communication that there was before is really gone. There is nothing there. There is only the manager at this point. And we're not saying come out and say you need to tell us how much money you've got. You need to tell us exactly what's that's ridiculous and it would never anything like that. But just a case in point of, look, this is what we're trying to work with. This is what we're up against. Look, things aren't great. They haven't been for a couple of transfer windows. This is the course. Things will get better. We're starting to see changes in terms of the revenue coming through. We've seen revenue tick up over the past couple of years. So we get that things are going in the right direction. But things have gone sort of stale in terms of even the amount of commercial revenue that come in. Those deals that were supposed to be they're talking about the fact that there was plenty of links they could have, and maybe it was the Manchester City thing, and they're waiting for the outcome of that before they can start to do things, and the whole thing with the associated party transactions. But there seems to be a lack of push in that regard, and again, maybe that will come once the announcement or once there's more talks about the stadium, because then they can move on with that, and that's another frustration, I think, because the Newcastle fans know there has to be change in that regard, whether that's the current stadium, whether that's a new stadium. But again, a lack of information, a lack of just updates to say, look, they're still in talks, they're still looking at all possibilities. Just keep that conversation flowing, so that fans aren't stupid.
Well, I think
we like a rant.
Yeah, well, definitely I like a run, and so does Paul if he's still in the comments. You might go to bed now. Lynn's got a question there about perhaps Mitchell should sit beside Howe in the presses and answer these questions. You know what it is, Lynn? I think Mitchell thinks that's beneath him. I think he's arrogant. And I think he thinks that's beneath him. And I know Alex didn't mean it to sound that way in Toon Review earlier on, but to absolve Mitchell of any responsibility to talk to the fans, I don't agree with personally, because he knows the football club he signed up to. This is as passionate a fan base as you're ever going to come across in your entire career in football. It's not Monaco, it's not Leipzig, it's not Spurs, it's Newcastle United. And if it's 3 windows and no players, you bet your fucking bottom dollar people are going to want to hear what's going on, right? And you have to say something, And I agree. putting the manager under pressure so much. Doesn't matter how articulate he is and how good he is at deflecting in press conferences. He's absolutely brilliant at it, right? But don't leave the poor guy there to get that every single press conference. Because I tell you what, if we don't sign anybody in this window, which I'm thinking is getting more and more likely, if that poor bloke is sat there on his own after the January transfer window and the whole press pack are asking him, so why didn't you sign any players? I think that's abysmal by Mitchell and his team to do that to Eddie Howe. Absolutely abysmal, abhorrent even. I think it's just shocking. Alan's saying, how is the problem? He gives poor players like Burnshaw, Bruno, his donkey, Tripp's the same. Saudi don't trust Howe, Saudi own the club. I think they do trust him, Alan, because if they didn't, they would have sacked him, because there was managers they could have replaced him with. So I think they would have sacked him. I do think at one point, I think he was touch and go. But I think for me, Chippers is bang on. We've only heard from the guy twice since his arrival, and, you saw him on the Newcastle socials swagging around Benton, showing that 17-year-old kid around. Now, listen, this kid might turn into the next fucking Messi for all I know, right? But that's not going to excite me as a fan, unless the kid happens to be the mutt's nuts and he's going to walk straight into the squad at 17 and banging a hat-trick like Michael Owen did at fucking Liverpool, But I don't think that's going to happen, because if he was, he probably would have been snapped up by Chelsea or City, probably, if he was that good. So for me, the jury is massively, massively out on Mitchell. As Stephen says, I think he needs to speak more. And Christopher says the word is clarity mark.
Yeah,
I think
exactly that.
Yeah, totally agree, Chris. You're bang on, matey. But I just think for me, this feel-good factor, this trust that these supporters gave these owners when they bought us from Mike Ashley, right? That was never going to last forever. That feeling of euphoria, that love, that adoration, that blind allegiance to the new owners was never going to last forever. Yes, we're way ahead in the schedule. We never thought in our wildest dreams we would have been Champions League as quick as we were. We never thought in our wildest dreams we'll arguably could be in 2 cup finals by the time the season's out, or be in the top 4 again, right? And that's a real possibility, right? And a lot of that, of course, is down to the owners and massively down to Eddie Howe. But in football, I think Alan Shearer said this on several occasions, right? If you don't add to the squad, you're standing still. You have to add to your squad. You have to find a way to do it. Whether that's a young player coming in to replace an older aging player. You can't tell me some of them young kids, Mark, in the academy or in the reserves couldn't have offered you more than, say, what Sean or Joe Willock has done in the handful of games that we've seen them in the last few weeks. You can't tell me some of them young players. Like, what happened to Alfie Harrison, the next big thing was signed from City? Where's he gone? Disappeared.
But and I sort of, and this goes back to what I was saying before. There's the lack of investment over time in that youth academy and the reserves and things. And I think we're seeing that laid bare is the fact that there aren't those players in the squad that can come through. The Mileys are a slightly different story, but they're sort of two amongst many. Sanusi came from elsewhere. But those sorts of moves, I think that there has to be more, and there have been a few of those where Newcastle have identified players from lower league clubs, particularly to go out and get them in the academy, get them in the reserves, and get them playing. I think the Harrison one is. I mean, he looks a wonderful footballer, doesn't he? From the little that I've seen of him, he looks like a very, very good footballer, and maybe he will be the next one to come along. And it's all.
When?
I guess it's
when.
Well, that's part of it, but there's when is he Eddie ready? And I think we've talked about that before. And there's a difference between being ready and being Eddie ready.
Being Eddie ready. This is the difference, isn't it? But I mean, listen, I think we need to move on because this has lowered my frequency.
We could be here
massively
for another 2 hours
talking about this bollocks. I know it's very topical at the minute, but honestly, it's lowered my frequency. So thank God. Just like Southampton coming next, we have Out of Toon to move to, where it's a little bit light-hearted and a little bit fun, and we can step away from Newcastle a little bit. And there was plenty of funny things going on in the world of football right now. And I know you all love an impression, so I do love to do it. United, as in Mark Goldbridge, he's fucking shit. He can't catch the ball. He's a vampire. He's allergic to crosses. Mark Goldbridge was not very happy when Erling Haaland signed a new contract for Manchester City. 9.5 years. Maybe we should do the same thing for Isak. But Goldbridge decided to tweet, Holland, what a prat. Sold his whole career away for money at a soulless club. And I forget City getting done. Clearly, no, they're not. Spent 10 years spending like no one else can. How is that fair? To which Liam Gallagher just replied, shut up. You see you next Tuesday, which is pretty much standard Liam Gallagher.
Spending like no one else. I'm sorry. Is it not Manchester United that have spent over £1 billion in players over the last 10 years or something like that? So maybe have a look at your own team spending and what they've spent it on before you have a go at City. Yeah. I get the City thing with the...
And as Chipper says, Man United are so soulless, man. Honestly, God, you could send a demon hunter in there and he would find fuck all. They're absolutely terrible.
They are the zoo at the moment because there is livestock running around that place, and I don't just mean Bruno Fernandes.
I tell you what, by the way, I was walking down by the Priory early on today, right? And I swear to Christ, I saw a rat run in front of me, and I thought it was a fucking dog. It was massive, right? This thing must have had fish and chips and a coffee from Mr. Woods. I think it was fucking gigantic. This thing, honestly, it was that big. I thought I had a gerbil friend called Kevin. There's another 80s reference for you. Kevin.
Just out of curiosity, you angling for a sponsorship from Mr. Woods? The number of times you've mentioned over the last couple of weeks.
I mean, well, they do serve fantastic coffee in Time Off and at the Broadway as well. If you're interested in the area, Mr. Woods, there you go. That's how we play the game. I do love a Woods coffee, to be fair. But yeah, so that was quite humorous in terms of it comes to Goldbridge. It's not going quite well for Goldbridge at the moment, as Manchester United were humped by Brighton, which was beautiful to see. I know Minter scored, and that was a bit tough. And it prompted their manager, Ruben Amorim, to say, we are being the worst team maybe in the history of Manchester United. And as most Newcastle United fans, the huge big grin smile just went right up to the cheekbones there when we heard that. It was beautiful to hear, Mark. It was beautiful. And honestly, as a goalkeeper, I have one question for you. How shit is Onana? He has got to be up there with the worst goalkeeper I think I've ever seen in Premier League history. Awful, mate.
I mean, yeah. I sort of think Massimo Taibi, in terms of level of just being horrendous. He
makes him look like Peter Shilton, mate.
I have no idea. When that ball comes in for the cross, when he goes out to stop that, I've just no idea what he's doing. I've genuinely no idea what he's doing. He's just awful. He can make some unbelievable saves. The double save he made in the Southampton game, world class. But then he cannot do the basics. He's just horrendous. And they spent, what was it, 50 million on him?
50 million quid. 50 million quid. Unbelievable. Actually, just a comment there from Portsmouth. Obviously, I've never seen the 1973-74 season for Manchester United. And speaking of the old days of Manchester United, rest in peace, Dennis Law. That was a real loss to football. The only Scot to win the Ballon d'Or. Rest in peace to Dennis Law, which was really, really sad. And you've got a horrible segue. I was going to say, speaking of dead man walking, that's way too close to the knuckle, Chris. That's not good at all. But speaking of managers under pressure as well, and if you think it's bad getting beat by Brighton at home, try getting beat by Everton. And that's what poor Ange Postecoglou had to put up with. And this is the interview doing the rounds. I think it was the BBC interviewed him, and they said familiar feeling is how they started the interview, and Ange was shocked at this and said, what do you mean familiar feeling? And the interviewer then prompted by saying getting beat again. He said, great way to start an interview, but they are in big trouble, Mark. They're sitting in 15th in the table, and their infamous owner was pictured looking like this in the crowd. If anyone in the audio, that's Daniel Levy slowly dying inside, which doesn't again bring a tear to my eye because again he's a bit of an arsehole. But the only good thing about Spurs losing, not only is it a rival for the top five, I suppose, slipping down the table, it's the reactions of expressions oozing, because that bloke has got to be my favorite YouTuber, man. He is one of the funniest kids I've ever seen in my life.
Do you know what? I'm in complete agreement for you. Usually I kind of the kind of the overreactions, the likes of troops and stuff like that. I can't stand at times. But expressions is great. I absolutely love him. I think he's brilliant. And some of his stuff is just, I'd laugh so much. The reaction to was it we realized there were 22,000 people watching him the other day, and he was like, "You better fucking subscribe." I was howling at that clip. I mean,
It was when Tony Bellew called him as well, which I thought was awesome as well.
Oh,
By the way,
just-
which is
yeah, good on you, man.
he's a very, very funny man. I must admit. I mean, his banter about Sol Campbell was absolutely brilliant. If anyone hasn't seen the video about Sol Campbell, which was ridiculous to do that video anyway by Sol Campbell, I mean, he must have known what was coming off. And then to accuse Spurs fans of turning into a race thing was just no. It was a money thing, you greedy bastard. That's what it was all about. And the fact that you ditched them to go play for their rivals was absolutely abysmal, mate. But yes, it was. He is a very, very good YouTuber. But speaking of a feel good story as well, mate, a little bit further away. Speaking of a former Spurs player as well, we all know Deli Ali's had some real struggles in his personal life and his professional career as well. Anyone who saw that interview with Gary Neville, I think even the hardest soul would have found it a bit difficult to not feel sorry for Deli Ali in that video, because it was really, really, really tough stuff. And it sounds like he has signed work, hasn't he, for Como, which is now managed by Cesc Fabregas. So he's been training with them. And I think he's officially signed a contract now. And do you know what? I, for one, really hope that Deli Ali can get back to enjoying his football and enjoying his life, mate, because I still think there's a really good player in there. And I just really hope he can find some happiness, mate, because he's been through some shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's only 28 and he's got an awful lot of time ahead of him. And just to see him back on a football field, just enjoying himself again and just, get away from what's gone on and try and just have the next stage of your life just be really good. And look, he had the world at his feet at one point when he signed for Spurs, and there were an awful lot of teams that were after him at the time, Newcastle being one of them, and he looked like he was going to take that step on and just be exceptional. And it has been sad to see, and he has had some proper demons. So it is great to see, and I really, really do hope that he's able to kick on. And I think he signed an 18-month deal with them. So look, yeah. I think it's we all would wish him well, because I think he needs that opportunity to take a step on and do it. So yeah, good luck to him. Good luck to him.
Absolutely, mate. And speaking of somebody else who had the world at the feet, one of the best young players I've ever seen come through in football was Wayne Rooney, but it's not quite worked for him as a manager. Suffice to say, he's not really had a great time. He had a nice little spell at Derby, went to America, didn't really quite work. Obviously, went to Plymouth. The only thing I think he successfully managed to do was get a couple of young birds back to his flat, allegedly, I must say, to cover my own arse there. But he's out of a job there, and it sounds like he might have another job at soon, Mark, as well. It sounds like he might be getting a punditry job at Match of the Day, which prompted probably one of the best tweets I've seen all year, which was from Will Thomas here. Said he'll get them relegated to BBC Two, which I thought was absolutely fucking class. To be honest, mate. So well done, Will. Well done, mate. That's a tweet of the week, that, mate. I love that.
Definitely, yeah. I can't say I'm going to watch an awful lot of his punditry, because I just can't stand the sound of him. I don't mind a Scouser. I really don't. But I can't stand him. I really don't.
Lulu was great, wasn't she? She was a Scouser, mate. Lulu was great. Was Lulu a Scouser? No, she was Scottish.
Scottish.
I was thinking of Sonia, mate. Sorry, mate. I knew it was some redhead bird or Scylla.
I thought you meant Scylla.
Too many.
How old are we?
Yeah, too old, clearly, mate, as we're the only ones who seem to know who Kevin Keegan is, according to some of these young lads on X as well. So very, very old.
Talk about heads gone.
It's a good job that a friend of the channel, Lee Forster, didn't see that. I think he would have hunted that kid down and strapped him to a chair and educated him on the history
hit list. Definite hit list.
But Ollie's behind the wheel again, mate, surprisingly enough. Yeah, there he is. I love the fact that people were asking, why is he looking like he's going to put hula hoops on each finger in this picture? It was very weird. I mean, is this something to do with the mascot of Besiktas or something? I don't know. But he signed a new contract with Besiktas till 2026. Will Ollie do well there, mate? I don't know. Is he all that as a manager? I'm not entirely sure.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm just looking at what what the mascot of Besiktas is. It's an eagle, so maybe that's. But he looks like a really bad bear, doesn't he?
Very strange. Very
Please don't clip that and put that on social media. Oh my god, no!
We're going to get them dodgy comments in the chat with your little kind of
no! What
am I doing? There, mate? You've just roared a bit like somebody called William Buttlicker there, mate. As well. I mean, maybe that's the kind of comments we'll get in the chat. This was spectacular shithousery, by the way. Whoever put this up on X, and the fact that TNT Sport did not clock this. This is Justin Cliver, not Patrick Cliver. And they decided to pull this comment up live on TNT Sport that said, Cliver, that's one spectacular hat-trick. Take a bow, son. And the name is William M. Buttlicker. Now, that has got to be a fucking wind-up mark. There's no way that is a real person's name. I'm not having it.
And if you are William M. Buttlicker, we apologise sincerely. And my God, your school time must have been horrendous.
I know. He's obviously in serious years of therapy, to be fair. I must admit.
Dear.
I must admit. But that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. That was the second best bit of shithousery I think I saw at the weekend. Number one goes to goalkeeper target for Newcastle United, if you believe it, James Trafford. Now, James Trafford has almost reached Newcastle United legendary status and he hasn't even signed for the football club. He saved 2 penalties in 10 minutes to stop the Mackhams going joint top. And the best part about this whole thing, Mark, now I've always been a big one who said I don't really rate James Trafford, but the fact that he turned around to the Mackhams and did the Isaac Gunfinger salute, I think he may have converted me, mate. I don't really want him to be our goalkeeper. I want to buy him a pint because I think he's an absolute fucking legend of a shithouse. And then he was asked after the game, about why did it take you so long? And the Mackhams were screaming. I saw a clip of the Mackhams screaming, referee, what's he doing? He was tying his laces. He was playing with his gloves. And it was dark art stuff. It belonged in Slytherin. It was that fucking bad, mate. It was absolutely brilliant.
There was a definite hint of the Emi Martinez's about that. It's about just all those delaying tactics. And I think he gets booked, doesn't he, for some of it. But he's... Yeah, I mean, just look, that late in the game, you're doing everything you possibly can to get in the head of the attacker. And look, he's already missed once to then go in and do it again. It's just, yeah, well done. Well done.
So I'm going to get this kind of a Chippers has just floored me in the comments. I'll get that in a minute. But I like Coffee saying, speaking to Harry Potter, John Joe Shelby's joined Burley. He has joined Burley. And they revealed him with a Hogwarts theme as well, with James Trafford in the video, which I thought was absolutely hilarious as well. It really was. And Paul says that Trafford is from Cockermouth. That sounds like somewhere where William Buttlicker may live as well. Chip, I know Cockermouth very well, not that well. Chippers is saying it was as dark as a Paul Gallant music video, which is fucking... You're going to kill me tonight, Chippers, honestly, mate. You are taking me out of my Blue Monday funk. Thank you very much for that, mate. I really appreciate that. You worked hard. And speaking of the dark arts, mate, I don't know if you know, Sky Sports have branched out now. So not only have they decided to get, any ex-player really that want to play football, they've even branched out to the world of Hogwarts. And they managed to get Lucius Malfoy on tonight. To talk about the football. I mean, I hope he didn't cast any kind of curses in the studio and levitate Carragher possibly. There'd be spit flying all over the fucking players if he did that, mate. But no, this was not Lucius Malfoy. This was Manuel Petit, who, I mean, I don't know what he was doing there, mate. Was he selling their fragrance or something? I mean, that is a look, isn't it? Wow.
I think what got me was the number of bracelets that he had on. It's unbelievable, the number, and that was both arms as well. And I was really disappointed because as soon as I turned it on and it must have been on a couple of minutes or something, and I looked and I went, oh dear God.
Oh, Christopher, brilliant. How many more dirty Harry Potter jokes can we get in the chat? Come on, there's a challenge. Chip is just saying petite. Oh, Chippers, you're on form. You're on absolute form, mate.
Mate.
George thinks it's Legolas. But yeah, where was his bow and arrow? I don't even want to know. You're right, Mark. Chippers is on fire. Chippers is going to go stand up soon, I think, with these kind of lights.
I was going to say I was more disappointed by the fact I went to put it on X after because I thought, it's a brilliant line for me. Went on, 50,000 other people had just said the same thing. I was like, I can't say it now.
Absolutely. Well, as we were talking about the transfer window earlier on, Mark, I promise I won't be writing anymore, I promise. But there's some strange stuff that goes on in transfer windows and some strange sentences and strange things that have happened over the years, none more than the blue dildo in the ear of the Sky Sports guy, which is still my favourite. I miss those days. Well, that was my favorite transfer window. But this has got to be the weirdest sentence I think anyone's ever said in a transfer window. So I'm going to say this out loud. So just remember, this is a real statement, right? After failing to agree a deal to sign Sheffield Wednesday's Josh Windass this month, Brazilian side Santos are close to signing Neymar. What a sentence that is. That's a tweet from the EFL zone. And Josh Windass must have that framed now, Mark, in the living room, surely. I mean, that is a belter. That is a belter of a statement.
As transfer windows, this is as good as I've seen Lionel Messi's misses getting on a plane from Barcelona and stuff like that. So that's one of those ones where you just got to go, huh?
Nice.
Yeah. But
that is superb.
But this comes on the back of earlier in the week. Which team does he play for? Is it Al Hilal or I can't remember.
Yeah, well, apparently he's trying to buy himself out of his contract or something.
And they've said he's not going to play. So for the rest of the season, he's not. He can play in the Asian Champions League, but he's not going to play in the rest of the season.
He's only played about 14 minutes for them in total or something like that. He's been paid like £75 million or something like that.
Jesus
ridiculous. I think it's over £100 million he's actually been paid, which is just nuts. Absolutely nuts. I mean, that makes a mockery of the Saudi League. Mark is Googling that. I can hear those teams. He's away. Well, while you're away, Mark, there's been some breaking news about Carlo Ancelotti. Now, I love Carlo Ancelotti, as you all know. You know, Carlo Ancelotti, if Eddie Howe had got binned, and Ancelotti would have been free, he'd have been my pick, hands down. I think he's one of the best managers in club football. You know, and that eyebrow is so iconic. That could cut the atmosphere. That eyebrow. Yeah, well, very good, Mark. Very good. Good. Obviously, I'm being quite fair-haired myself. My eyebrows are pretty shit, so they don't really quite work as well as yours. But unless I drew them on. But it sounds like Don Carlo is going to be leaving Real Madrid. I won't do that. No. It's Don Carlo is going to be leaving Real Madrid at the end of the season. Now, this doesn't surprise me because a lot of people were saying that is Xabi Alonso being kind of, brought through as the next Real Madrid manager. You know, we talked about this before. Leverkusen are playing brilliant again this season. I don't think Xabi Alonso's there after this season. I think he's destined to be the Real Madrid manager. Would you agree, mate?
Yeah, I think he's sort of a natural fit for him, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. That's where I learned how to do it from the people's eyebrow. I must say, misspent youth. But Leverkusen second in the Bundesliga? They're 4 points behind Bayern. I think I said to you earlier on, they haven't lost a league game since August. You know, that's after having gone the entirety of last season unbeaten. He is the next in line, I think, and with his link to the club as well. I think that the natural progression, I think, for him will be to go to Madrid next. I can't see there being any other manager in that sort of mould that is ready to go. I think he will definitely be there. Yeah, Stevie O'Brucio or Samio Allardyce or whatever he wants to be called.
Yeah, once upon a time, Sam Allardyce did actually think he was going to be the Real Madrid. He could be the Real Madrid.
He said he could, yeah.
He'd say, yeah, I'm sure. On Championship manager, possibly, Sam. Maybe not in real life. Honestly, what an absolute clown. So this was an absolute belter tweet as well from Basingstoke Town FC. As you love this. And it said, to the lad who yesterday confidentially ordered a pint at the bar, presenting valid ID, but then strolled over to snag an under-18's ticket, holding said beer, we salute you, commitment to the hustle. But mate, pick a lane, you can't be both. And then the picture is shown with that. So massive credit to Basingstoke, mate. That's a great tweet.
To have the sheer goal to do those two, I mean, for one, is great. Be proud of the fact that you can go and get your pint, great. To then turn around with your pint in hand to go to the under-18s and go, yeah, I'll get a ticket for an under-18. I mean, come on, that's just brilliant. I'd have given them the ticket there and then just for sheer balls to do it.
Absolutely, mate, absolutely. And to be fair to him, I think he's probably destined to end up at Ocean's 11, I think, mate, to be fair. But we're going to end on a brilliant bit of honesty here. Now, we often denigrate footballers for talking like robots after games, and not sounding human enough. And this was absolutely brilliant. So this was Andre Kremich after his team got battered 5-0 by Bayern Munich, the goalkeeper. And I mean, wow. I mean, this is incredible. He was getting interviewed. I love the Bundesliga because they swear. I mean, remember Erling Haaland when he first signed it, he swore on Sky and they told him off. And he said, oh, you're okay to do it in the Bundesliga because the Bundesliga are obviously a bit more relaxed, aren't they? But the interviewer was asking questions and he basically said, this is one big shit season. He said, if I want to say the things on my mind about the club and the situation, I'll probably get the biggest fine in the history of the Bundesliga. So he's not very happy, is Kramaric. But I love that honesty, mate. Just turn around saying this is a big shit season. I mean, that's class, isn't it?
I mean, I do. I absolutely love the honesty for that, and I guess for a player like that, he is a forward. He's
oh, sorry, mate. I thought he was a keeper. I beg your pardon.
No, he's. I think that's just because he was wearing gloves because he was a bit.
That's it. Yeah, I thought it was a keeper with gloves on there.
But he's got. I'm sure he's got 100+ goals in 200 and something games. So he's
fucking good goalkeeper. Then
decent goalkeeper.
Does he shoot from the box?
Absolutely. He must take pot shots from distance. But yeah, they've been a little bit awful. That's to be kind to them. They're only 3 points, I think, maybe outside of the relegation zone for them, and that's an awful performance for them this season. And he's absolutely right. But I love the honesty. We need that on our own team. We need players to be honest. We need the likes of Haaland to say it's fucking bollocks or whatever. It's just let them be honest. I know it's before the watershed, bollocks to it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why my phone never rang when Madrid were looking to replace Gary Lineker.
I did wonder.
It was. Yeah, I think the swear jar would have runneth over chippers. I think I would have already ended up with about £3 a week if I got fined for swearing on the BBC. Man, I think I'd have been in big trouble. But that is all pretty much done then, guys, for this week. Thank you so much for everybody in the chat. We always appreciate it. I intended to do a short one tonight, and I've just ranted too long, and it's went on for ages. But thank you.
It wasn't my fault.
It wasn't Mark's fault, though. He didn't ramble. It was me rambling. I was shouting ball yards. But thank you so much, everyone who stuck with us. We always appreciate it. It always helps the episode flow. And as I mentioned before, if you like this kind of thing, smash subscribe, unless you're a rogue doctor in the comments and don't think you'll be back. Smash subscribe, help get us to the next milestone, which is 10K. We'll be back with some more content soon. Probably not transfer rumours because I've had enough of it, but we will be back with some more content and plenty of stuff going on in Newcastle United and in our minds. So keep it evermore until then, guys. We'll be back as well for the next game against Southampton, the preview and a post-match. So until then, we'll see you later and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you guys. Thank you.